If you are newly engaged, you are in the right place. Today, I am sharing the first 5 things you should do now that you're engaged, so stick around. Today, we are digging into the first 5 things you should do now that you're engaged. Number 1, announce your engagement. Okay, sure. The easiest thing to do to announce your engagement is post a new ring selfie on Instagram to tell all your friends. However, there are a few people you should reach out to personally, the old-fashioned way, before sharing the news on social media. So people like your parents, your fiance's parents, your siblings, even your best friends. Make that personal phone call or send them a text to let them know before you put it out in the world on your Instagram page. Just taking that extra time to tell them personally can go a long way and will definitely avoid any hurt feelings. Step number 2, determine how much you have to spend for the wedding. So if you've always been dreaming of a 6-course dinner with 400 of your favorite friends and the ballroom covered in orchids, that's amazing. However, do you have the budget to support that? Before you go too far in the planning process, figuring out how much money you have to spend is so important. And I know it's not fun. Talking about money is never fun, but you have to. Weddings are expensive. And before you get your hopes up about a dream wedding, you need to figure out how much do you have to spend. So it is important for you to A, figure out how much you're contributing and any other parents, your fiance, who is involved in the money sharing pool, and then how much money do you have? These are sometimes very difficult conversations, but they have to be had. I know talking about budgets is never fun. However, it is the very first thing I do with any of my planning clients because we can't start to develop the wedding unless we know how much we have to spend. So it is very important before you go spending money or even researching venues to figure out how much money there is in the pool to spend on your wedding. Once you have a big number, you can know if your giant wedding for 400 people and 18 courses is realistic or not. Once you know the total amount to spend, that's really only half of the equation, unfortunately. The second part is figuring out how you're going to divide up all of that money. So instead of just having a big chunk of money, let's just say $50,000 to spend, you really need to take that $50,000 and divide it by all of the different categories involved in a wedding. So everything from your dress or the cake and food and beverage, the floral and lighting and invitations, etc., etc. I could go on forever, but taking that big number and dividing it up into smaller chunks is truly the best way to stay on budget and to know what you really can afford. So a lot of times people will say, let's just imagine $50,000, and they think, oh, I can spend $40,000 on the venue and food and beverage, and that's fine. But unless you've taken the time to figure out what all of the other categories are to be spent on the wedding, you can easily overspend in one area and then get down to the wedding and be like, oh, shoot, I actually don't have enough money to pay the final catering bill. Nobody wants that. So budget, A, figuring out what the total pool of money is, and then B, dividing that up into the different categories. I have so much to share about wedding budgets and how they work and how to save money. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you get the next videos coming up about wedding budgets. Step number 3, narrow down a date. Now, I intentionally didn't say choose a wedding date. I said narrow down a date. And that is on purpose because I think it is most helpful when you can narrow down to a time of year or even a month that you want to get married as opposed to a specific date. So I do have clients who choose a specific date for a particular reason. Maybe it's the date they met or it's the anniversary of their parents, something like that. However, if you can be a little bit more flexible, I think it opens up some doors for you, particularly when it comes to choosing a venue. So if you've chosen one date only, you fall in love with the venue, and they're only open the following weekend, then you have to eliminate that venue. But if you can be flexible with a couple of dates in mind, then when you're going to choose venues, you can kind of pick and choose the best place for you with some flexibility on the date, as opposed to having to eliminate places altogether just because you've narrowed in on one date. So, in choosing the date, you should be thinking about a couple of things, such as how long of an engagement do you want? I personally think 9 to 12 months is ideal when you have time to focus on planning. When you need to spread it out, of course, we can make it longer. I personally had a very long engagement, almost 20 months, because my husband and I were saving money for the wedding. Item number 2, on budget, we needed to contribute to our own wedding, so having more time to save was helpful. But choosing your date based on how long of an engagement you want is also helpful. And then finally, choosing a date based on time of year. So depending on where in the country you live, some times of the year are perfect weather, some are miserable weather. So if you want to either avoid hurricane season or avoid sweating in 110-degree weather, choosing your date based on seasonality can be really helpful. Step number 4, begin compiling your guest list. This is a lot of work, but I have to tell you, doing it up front is so helpful because you'll be looking at venues that are appropriately sized for the number of guests that you're having. So it doesn't make sense to be looking at venues that hold 100 people if your guest list is 300. And on the flip side, it doesn't make sense to be looking at venues that are appropriate for 300 guests if you're only having 75, because it will just feel so empty. So my step number 4 is to really think through who is invited to the wedding. That includes your list, your fiance's list, your parents' list, and his parents' list, because truly you are combining families, so you can't do it, unfortunately, in your own little bubble. You have to compile the list of everyone to get to a master list of who's being invited to the wedding. Step number 5, determine if you need a wedding planner. Now, this is not the part of the video where I tell you everyone needs a wedding planner and I tell you that you should hire my company and I should be, no, that's not what we're doing here. I will be the first to tell you that not everyone needs a wedding planner. Like, this is my job and I need people to want to hire me. However, not everyone needs a wedding planner. I have people who call my office all the time looking for a wedding planner. And as I talk to them, I really am telling them, not only should you not hire me, you shouldn't hire anyone. Because sometimes if your wedding budget, which we talked about in step 2, is such that you need every penny to be able to feed your guests and wear a nice dress and cut a cake, you don't have money left over to hire a planner. That's just a fact. People have been planning weddings for centuries without a wedding planner. It truly is a luxury. So, if you have a small wedding budget, if you are trying to stretch every penny, if you are not having a very high-end wedding, my opinion is you do not need a wedding planner. You might need a wedding coordinator to run the day of so you don't have to worry about the details, but having someone from the beginning really should be for people who have the budget to support it. I'm probably pissing off a lot of wedding planners right now, but these are my opinions and it's my YouTube channel. If you have a budget to support a wedding planner, it can be extremely helpful for a couple different types of people. First, if you are someone who overthinks things and needs someone to really guide you, a wedding planner could be a great investment. Also, if you're a procrastinator and don't always get things rolling like you should, a wedding planner is obviously there to help move the ball forward. A wedding planner can also be super helpful for someone who just doesn't have the time to do the research on the best vendors or venues or best ways to spend their money. Someone who really just wants to hand it over is a perfect client for a wedding planner if they have the budget to support it. So before you get too far in the planning process, really think about if you need that service. As a planner myself, I love to work with clients from the very beginning before they've gotten too far down the process, because I can help you avoid mistakes you might have made otherwise. For example, budgeting. From day one, that's the first thing we do with our clients is figure out their wedding budget. If you need help with that and have the budget to support it, a wedding planner can be super helpful. I have a lot to say about this topic as well, so more videos to come about hiring a wedding planner. Thanks for joining me at my Hitched Academy channel. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. And in the comments below, tell me what your best takeaway from my top 5 tips was. And we will see you in the next video coming soon.